All right, guys, thanks for joining me. Listen, recently Arnold Schwarzenegger has come out and basically criticized men's physique, which I find to be a little short-sighted and, if anything, small-time thinking.
It's bogus.
I actually love men's physique. Now, I'm an older guy. I'm past my prime, obviously. I wish that men's physique was around when I was in my prime, in my mid-20s, because it was always my goal to become a bodybuilder. But I'll tell you something, being a kid from the 80s and 90s, I was always afraid of running gear. So I tried to do it naturally. I've always maintained natural status. And it's just impossible to achieve those levels. And of course, back then, right, talking about late 90s, early 2000s, you did not have men's physique. You didn't even have classic physique. These are all categories that came about in the last, 12 years. I think the first men's physique was probably 2012, 2013. And if you look at those physiques, I'm talking about the early versions of Sadiq, the early versions of Jeremy Buendia. They had a totally different look. And of course, with time, over the years, those guys became bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, the reason why I think men's physique is such a good opportunity for newbies to sort of like get their feet wet in is because it's a more achievable look, right? You have guys who are in the open category. You got to be running a lot of gear. Not only do you have to have the genetic talent, the discipline, and of course, access to funds to pay for those PEDs, it's just unattainable for many, right? Classic, I'd go ahead and say the same. Early men's physique, I think a lot of guys out there could have achieved something comparable. So let me show you a physique of me when I was about 27, 28. This is what I was rocking. 7 years of basically training naturally, never touched PEDs, still have never touched PEDs. But I think with this physique, and if men's physique was around, I probably would have entered some competitions and to see like how far I can take it. But of course it wasn't around. And so the only option there was open bodybuilding. Classic did not exist, men's physique did not exist. And so that was a huge turnoff because I knew guys who were competing to become IFBB pros. I grew up in Canada, Montreal specifically, and so there were a number of bodybuilders from Montreal that I sort of interacted with every now and then. And the gear was just something, it was a line I couldn't cross. And I'm not judging anyone out there who decides to hop on gear, but for me, it just wasn't an option. So I was greatly discouraged. I got into other things, but at the same time, had men's physique been around, that's something I definitely would have pursued. And maybe I would have run some cycles, who knows, maybe some really light cycles. Again, I don't even know much about gear and what to start off with and what's the first cycle you should take. But I probably would have gotten into some PEDs at some point. But I'm pretty sure that men's physique guys are not running as much gear as, let's say, the classic guys or even the open bodybuilder category. A lot of you will say, no, that's not true. In fact, the men's physique guys are running just as much gear as the guys in the open. I kind of disagree with that. Now, again, I don't have experience in it, but it's like, why would you want to gain like 80, 90 pounds of muscle? First of all, with men's physique, there is a cap, a weight cap. So you can't just run as much as you want. Many guys right now who are currently active in the scene, well, they've already like hit that threshold. So they just have to sort of like maintain, chisel up their body, maybe even pull away from certain body parts. Like if your legs are thick, maybe you want to broaden your shoulders or your arms or something, or maybe develop your upper body, which I think is not a bad problem to have. I certainly think that, you're probably not running as much gear as if you were an open bodybuilder. Some guys will also say, well, I think men's physique, classic and open guys are running just as much gear. The only difference, right, is that they're eating more. So open guys eat probably a little more to get that size. And again, maybe there's some truth to that, but I think the open guys are taking substantial amounts of PEDs. Nonetheless, let's get back to what Arnold had to say. I think this is a really short-sighted way of seeing the industry because, frankly, I think a lot of guys don't want to run a lot of gear. There are a lot of guys like me who are natural. We're what you call, what is it, like lifetime natties, you know. We don't want to look like that. As much as I was a bodybuilding fan in my 20s and 30s and 40s, and now approaching my 50s, I don't want to look like a mass monster. Love Ronnie Coleman, but that's not the look that I sort of appreciate. I like the beach body look. That's the look I always had in my 20s and 30s. And I think a lot of guys see that look as something very much achievable. Now, obviously, if you have the right genes, the right height, the right muscle insertions, muscle bellies, you can achieve something rather comparable to what you see in men's physique, or at least the early days of men's physique. Now they're just at a whole nother level. Back then, you could look pretty good. And frankly, I think a lot of women dig the physiques of men's physiques. Like, that's just what I sort of come to believe. I mean, even when I was a bigger guy, you know, I'm 6 feet tall, and at some point I was like 207, but super lean. A lot of girls thought that that was sort of borderline. For many of them, they thought, like, they tell me, don't get any bigger, this is just right. Again, obviously, you know, if you're a guy and you're looking to attract, you know, the opposite sex, I think that's the way to go. So let's talk about the business aspect of the IFBB having a category like men's physique, because this is a category that's going to attract a lot of newbies into the industry. And again, a lot of guys don't want to look like the open guys, even the classic guy. I mean, mind you, you do have Chris Bumstead and Terrence and Urs, but realistically speaking, if you have a job, you have a family, you have a business you're running, you may appreciate looking like some of the men's physiques guys. Now, that doesn't mean that's going to come overnight, because trust me, those guys work extremely hard. But at least with probably a decade or so, if you're doing it naturally, you could achieve something comparable to early men's physique. So there's a real difference between the early versions of the men's physique competitors versus what you see now, right? Again, I think this is a great way of attracting new spectators to the sport, guys who will fill up those stadiums and arena to check out the men's physique. Like, if men's physique sort of waltzed by my town, I'd probably go check out a show. I'm not willing to hop on a plane to go check out a show, but I would definitely pay money. I saw one, I'm not gonna say where I live right now, but I saw one recently, and it did include a men's physique category, and I thought the guys looked really good, you know? So, and frankly, I think a lot of the spectators there, the male spectators, would probably appreciate looking like some of the guys I saw on stage. So let me know what you think about Arnold's comment and, you know, the men's physique category being bogus, claiming that they don't have legs. And you know, another thing, just to end off the video, you know, leg development, especially for taller guys, it's going to take a few more years. That's even if you train them on a regular basis. And especially if you're 6 feet tall, you have long legs, it's going to take you a couple years to fill them out. But eventually, they start looking really good. Now, they're not going to be as big and as chunky and as full as the open guys or even the classic guys, but they're going to be somewhat respectable, all right? Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. The video's getting kind of long. Leave your comments down below. I'll see you in the next one. Subscribe to the channel, by the way, if you want me to keep going with these types of videos, all right? See you next time. Bye for now.